Hello everyone, my name is Keely. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back if you've been here before. Today I'm going to talk about all the books that I read in the month of July. So I ended up reading 15 books in July, which resulted in 5,049 pages. I had a really great reading month, so let's just go ahead and get on into it. As always, I'm going to talk about these books in the order that I read them in. The first book I read in July was The Umbrella Maker's Son by Katrina Leno. This book follows a little boy named Oscar who lives in a town where it is always raining. Oscar's father is an umbrella maker and he needs help in the shop, so he tells Oscar to drop out of school and become his apprentice. Now there is a competing umbrella making shop in town, and when strange things start happening, Oscar starts suspecting this competition. I love this book so much. The rainy atmosphere is so cool, and this book actually has over 40 different types of rain, and it tells you each type, and they all have fun, silly little names. I loved Oscar and the mischievous adventures he got on. The whimsicalness of this book is just immaculate, and I really loved it. This is Katrina Leno's first foray into middle grade, and I want her to really write more middle grade because it was so magical, and I gave it 5 stars. Next, I read The Friend Zone by Abby Jimenez, and this book follows a young woman named Kristen. Kristen's best friend is about to get married, so she is helping her best friend with the wedding, and one day she meets the groom's best man, Josh. Now, there are immediate attraction and feelings, but the catch is Josh really wants a lot of children, and Kristen is unfortunately able to have kids, so she wants to keep him in the friend zone. But of course, things start developing. So, first off, I will say this is my first Abby Jimenez, and I definitely want to read more from her, but Kristen as a character was the worst character I have ever read. I hated her so much. She is obnoxious and abrasive, and I just really disliked her, and that ruined a lot of the book for me because of my dislike for her. Now Josh, I felt like he was on the borderline of being toxic, so I really didn't care for him either. However, this book talked about things that were really hard-hitting, especially infertility, so if that triggers you, just know that this is a heavy topic in it, and I really liked how that was done, and especially how Abby Jimenez explains it in the author's note. This book also made me cry, and books have such a hard time making me cry, and so the fact that this one did made me enjoy it even more because it brought out that emotion in me. There is something that happened in this book that I did not know happened, and it is something that has happened to me before, and so I could really relate to all of the characters' emotions and everything they were feeling in that moment. So I ended up giving this one 3 stars because it did make me feel so emotional and connected to those characters in that way, but on the other hand, I also hated Kristen so much, but I can't wait to read more from Abby Jimenez. Next, I read The House on Mango Street, and I actually didn't rate this one because I read it because I might be teaching it in my English class this year. This is short, and it is told in vignettes about a little girl who grew up in a Latino community in Chicago. So I'm hoping the more I research this and look into it, I get more out of it, because as of right now, it really wasn't my favorite. Next, I read The Dead Romantics by Ashley Poston, and I'm just gonna go ahead and say this first off. This is my favorite book of all time, but let me back up and tell you what it's about. So this book, we follow a woman named Florence Day, and Florence is a ghostwriter for a very popular romance author. However, Florence just had a really bad breakup, so she no longer believes in love. She is going into the office to tell her brand new editor that she cannot complete this last book in her contract, but he is not ready to extend the deadline and tells her she has to get it done. However, her dad ends up passing away, so Florence needs to go back home, which she hasn't been to in years. So her family actually owns a funeral home, so Florence has been surrounded by death her whole life, and she is really comfortable with it, and she can also see and talk to ghosts. Now her dad actually had this ability as well. So when Florence goes home, they are in the funeral home, and she hears a knock at the door, and when she goes to open it, it is a ghost, but it is the ghost of her brand new editor. Oh, this book did things for me I just did not expect. The conversations of grief and death in this is just amazing and beautiful and just really hit home. This book truly healed something in me that I did not know needed healing. I just connected it to it in so many ways, and it really made me reflect on my own grief and how I dealt with that years and years ago. I loved Florence as a character and her relationship with her editor because this is a romance book. However, the romance is more of a secondary plot, but I still loved the romance in here and how the characters became newer, healthier versions of themselves throughout the story. As soon as I finished this book, I started crying just because it was over. so I cannot wait to reread this in the future and annotate the heck out of it. So I gave this one, of course, 5 stars. The next 6 books I read for summerween, and I actually vlogged that entire week, so I will leave that link down below because I'm really not going to go into any in-depth synopsis with these. I'm just going to hold them up, tell you a little of my thoughts and the rating. So if you want to know more of what I thought of each book, definitely go watch that video. I had so much fun vlogging that week. So the first book I picked up for the readathon was Wrong Place, Wrong Time by Gillian McAllister. New favorite book. Seriously, I read The Dead Romantics and then this book, and they're both new favorites of all time. This is the most intelligent book I have ever read, and I gave it 5 stars. Next, I read Notes on an Execution by Daniel Kukafka, and I just gave this one 3 stars. I really didn't get out of it what I wanted to. After that, I picked up Holly Horror by Michelle Yavis-Kapora. This is a young adult horror book, and I really wanted to know more about the spooky ghost aspects and the missing people within the story, so it just didn't do exactly what I wanted, so I ended up giving this one 3 stars as well. After that, I reread the Southern Book Club's Guide to Slaying Vampires by Grady Hendrix. This is still one of my favorite books of all time. I love the gore and the horror and the vampires and how strong and powerful these housewives are, and again, I gave this 5 stars. After that, I read White Trash by Stuart Bray. This is the sequel to Broken Pieces of June, and this is an extreme horror book. This is probably my least favorite extreme horror I've ever read. I did not think it was nearly as good as the first book, so I gave it 2 stars. And the last book I read for summerween was A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. This is the first book in this series, and we follow a high schooler named Pip who is solving a murder. I loved Pip so much. She became one of my favorite characters, so I gave this 5 stars. So once again, those were just short to the point thoughts and ratings on each of those books, but if you do want to know more about my thoughts and the synopsis, definitely go check out my summerween reading blog. So after summerween, I definitely wanted to continue the A Good Girl's Guide to Murder series, so I picked up Good Girl, Bad Blood. This is the second book, and in this one, Pip is solving a new crime, but in this one, it is a missing persons case. Now, Pip has also started a podcast, and her boyfriend, Ravi, is on it sometimes, and he helps her solve the crimes, and I love Pip and Ravi so much, especially Ravi. He is such a sweet cinnamon roll. I love seeing Pip solve the crimes and put all the clues together, and how much she really cares for the people around her. Once again, love this book so much. These read so quickly, and I gave it 5 stars. The next 2 books I read in a weekly reading vlog, so I will once again leave that link down below so you can go see more of my thoughts. But the first book was As Good as Dead by Holly Jackson, and this is the 3rd book in this series, and the first 2 are 5 stars, and this one 2 stars. I hated it. I hated it. Pip became my least favorite character. She went from my favorite to someone I would not mind dying. So there's that. If you want to know more, go watch the vlog. I ranted about it, about how disappointed I was. And the last book for that vlog was The Cheat Sheet by Sarah Adams. Now this is a best friends to lovers fake dating sports romance. There's a lot of tropes in there, and I really love all of those tropes so much. However, I felt like we were in the friend zone way too long, and I wanted more of the relationship, so I gave this one 3 stars. The next book I read in July was Tell Me What Really Happened by Chelsea Sidoti. In this book, we follow a group of friends who go camping in the woods, and one of them ends up dead. So this book is told completely in police interviews, which I really did like that format. However, this book involves my least favorite trope of all time, which is the trope of the very popular girl that everyone is obsessed with for no reason, and she is extremely toxic. The girl in here that everyone's obsessed with, she is so toxic, and I really hate that trope because I just cannot see why everyone loves that person, and I have no sympathy for that person because of how horrible they are. So I really don't care, and it just makes me so frustrated because these characters are so obsessed with this girl, and I'm like, you deserve better. Like, it's okay that she's dead because she was horrible. You know what I'm saying? So I give this one 1 star because I just hate that trope so much. Why are people obsessed with the toxic person? Like, there's literally no good points about them, and you're so upset when honestly your life is better off without them. And the last book I read in July was a reread for me, and that is The Lightning Thief. This is book 1 in the Percy Jackson and the Olympian series by Rick Riordan. I'm rereading the series in anticipation for the TV show next year. I love this series so much. I can't even remember how many times I've read it now, and it just held up so well. It does every single time. I love Percy and the gang, and just all the mythology within it is so fascinating and so interesting, and Rick Riordan is truly a gem. He's done this so well, and he is like the first of his kind. I just love Uncle Rick so much. So once again, 5 stars for Percy Jackson. So those are all the books that I read in the month of July. Once again, go watch the vlogs that I will link down below if you want to know more about those books, because there were some really great ones, but also some really disappointing ones. But if you've made it this far in the video, go ahead and leave the lightning bolt emoji, because Percy Jackson, the lightning thief. But that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, all my social media links will be down below, and I'll see you next time. Bye!